How many people know you're going to be?
I believe there's 3 people that signed up for it, but sometimes we have, nobody signs up and then a lot of people show up. And sometimes people sign up and they can't be there, so.
Kom du tidlig da?
Jeg fikk P18.
Ja, det var du, ja.
Så jeg har litt tidligere.
Ja.
Et 10 minutter.
Ja.
Men du kommer fra jobb, eller?
Nei da, jeg har vært mora mi, så så er det hyggelig å besøke henne. Så er jeg bestandig for tidlig ut.
Du ble?
Jeg er bestandig for tidlig ut, alltid for tidlig ute.
Bestandig,
alltid, always.
Nei, hva betyr bestandig?
Always.
Always, ja. Unnskyld. Det er
bra du spør, det er fint.
Jeg bare bruker alltid.
Ja, jeg er bestandig, det er kanskje trøndersk. Kanskje,
Jeg studerer ikke trøndersk med bokmål.
Men det er veldig vanlig å si det da.
Kanskje, men
men
det er ikke så vanlig.
Det er fint at du spør.
Jeg håper jeg husker neste gang.
For vi vil jo gjerne bli forstått, så det er ikke noe vits i å snakke hvis ikke det blir forstått. For jeg er ikke ekspert i engelsk, da må jeg spørre hvis noen hver sin gang. Forstår du?
Hver sin gang?
Hver sin gang,
What happened?
Nei, sometimes I have to ask and sometimes you have to ask.
Yes, for å forstå.
Ja.
Sì, io non stiamo facendo te, la voglia. Ieri, che
So how long have you been here in
3 years.
Right. How did you hear about this? Is that in alright. I was wondering how people navigate
Okay.
and how they find it. Just
Alright.
curious. Because you don't sit here as well. You don't come to this school.
No.
Alright. So what do you do at NTN?
I'm working on researching.
Wonderful. So she's also working on this.
Okay. That's so beautiful. So you're from?
Yeah, I'm from everywhere. I can say that. Because I was educated in the United States, in Australia, New Zealand,
Okay.
and Brazil. So I'm from all over the place. But if you ask where I was born, then I was born in Brazil.
Okay.
Where were you born? China. I've never been there.
Yeah, very long way.
What I do here is do things. I know people that have been there, but I've always been too afraid, and I'll tell you why. Because of the alphabet.
Okay. Yeah, that's always the main obstacle.
Yes, I could probably learn phonetically, but I don't think I could learn the alphabet.
Yeah, the characters are very difficult to learn.
Yeah, I think that if you learn it as a child and grow up with it,
Yeah.
that's alright. But then if you're an adult and then you have to learn it, it's probably a challenge.
I think this principle applies to almost every language, right? Not only just
Not
the Asian language, but also.
I just think of the alphabet because the same thing scares me as being Russian. It looks like it sounds like a beautiful language, and I wanted to learn it, but the alphabet scares me.
Yeah, Russia, you mean?
The Russian alphabet.
Okay. But you can speak many languages, I guess, right?
Yeah, I speak Norwegian and English, Portuguese, and Spanish. Hi, so good to see you. I'm so glad. So we have a group of people here today. He's also from NTNU.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And the lady that just left, she's also a researcher. What do you do?
I'm a nurse.
You're a nurse. Oh, that's completely different. And but you're interested in languages and literature. It's a very eclectic group. That's a good thing.
How long have you been in Norway?
I've been here for 13 years.
Oh.
It's a long time. It's a lifetime.
Yeah, I do agree with you. The best time you ever spent in Norway.
I came here, I was 29 years old. And then it's like in my 30s and early 40s, all of that's me living in Norway, I think. if you look at yourself and where you lived, that sort of changes who you are a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah. But what kind of academic background do you have?
Yeah, I will talk about that a little bit. I have a degree, a bachelor's in literature and languages, but the main focus of that was English and literature and English language. And then I went on to do a master's degree in education in English. But I've always had a passion for literature. And mostly in this field, you end up working more with languages, teaching people how to speak languages. And then maybe they want to read a book in it, maybe they don't, but they want to learn how to speak. So I've been working more teaching languages than literature for the past few years. But yeah, this is a project very dear to my heart, the literary project with Dina. First, we started in the libraries. We did this at the library. You came to the one, yeah? So we started and we thought, as a standpoint from everyone that goes to the library, want to read a book, right? So we did it at the library, and we had two people come around, and the thing it shifted again into language again, because people that went to those events decided to learn English here. We haven't had a literature course here yet, but I would like to in the future to hold a course for people who are interested in literature.
But right now you're permanently living in Polyana or Oslo?
I've been live here.
Okay.
I've been living here since I came to Norway. I haven't really traveled around Norway so much. I probably should.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful country, and it's small enough that you can see a lot, just like New Zealand. When I was in New Zealand, I only lived there for a few months, 6 months I think, but I saw all the major cities there. All the major, because it's small enough, so I've traveled all over the place. Hi!
Hej, hej du! Ja, det är det. Kristin sidan av.
Ja, ja.
Ja, okej. De bara så här. Det var en person som var påmeldt, så vi venter på henne, og etterpå begynner vi.
Okay.
Og det blir nesten klokka 6.
Yeah, I believe. Oh, it's the radio. I thought it was voices in my head. I was like, oh my god. All right. Okay. I was starting to get worried. It's not a good sign. When you start, it's not supposed to be good. So I was thinking, oh no. I was trying to ignore it. And then when I saw the radio, I was like, okay, good. It was just the radio. All right.
Hi, I'm Eleni.
Egil.
Egil?
Egil.
Egil, yeah, nice to meet you. And we didn't introduce.
Yeah, I'm Monta, nice to meet you. Monta.
Kontal?
Yeah.
Eleni.
Would you mind sitting here instead so you can see how I write some notes?
Yeah.
Jeg visste ikke hvor den, men denne delen så brukte jeg litt sånn. For det var på grunn av luset, for der har vi ikke lus.
I'll be walking around this.
Okay. Så her har vi en lampe, for den her fungerer ikke. Det er litt dumt, men her har vi en lampe, så hvis dere trenger, da kan vi sette på bordet, og det blir en lampe.
Ja.
Nu var det fint. Okej. Och hvis det är kallt, bara bruka bordet.
I'm always cold, so don't ask me if I'm cold. Just make your decision. If you want to close it, close it. If you want it open, leave it open. I'm always cold, even in the summer. So.
Okej. Ja, ett minut. Och ja, på det nästa.
It's a good thing it's a different book that we're talking about today, because both of you were on the other ones. So yeah, so it's a good thing. We don't have to see it again. It's a different book.
And but today, like you won't leave here knowing what happens because this is a novel, and the last time it was a short story. So you won't, and I don't want to spoil it for people because I think that you might want to read the book on your own. So it's excerpts from the book, and then it gives you an idea, but it doesn't give away anything. That you can still. It's not like a mystery, like an Agatha Christie movie or a book that you. If somebody tells you the end, then you don't read it because you know who the killer is, and then it's like, oh. So I want you guys to tell me a little bit about what did you hear about Toni Morrison before today? Because I know that, was it Eleni? She was telling me that she hadn't heard about her before. How about you?
Same goes for me, actually. Yes, it's, I'm very...
You weren't familiar with her name from before?
No. I haven't. Yeah.
How about you?
So I was familiar with the name, but I haven't read the...
You haven't read any novels, but you heard the name. It sounds familiar. Right. How about you, Alex?
Almost the same, because I heard the name, but I didn't.
It rings a bell, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, Toni Morrison. I hear that some people hear Tony and they think it's a guy, right? Yeah. Because you have this one. Toni is usually spelled like that with a Y, and her name is Toni with an I. And she's a girl. So, how about you? Had you heard about Toni Morrison before?
Sorry, I haven't heard about her.
No, but that's a great thing because now I'm happy that you guys will walk out of here and you know who she is. That's a good thing. What happens with her is that she's in her 80s now. She's a living author. What I love about living authors is that they're still around and you can still watch their interviews. You can still see what they're saying about the work that they have. And you can ask them, was this what that meant in that passage? Because oftentimes what literature teachers do, and they say, oh, the flower was symbolism for this, this peaceful feeling that he had. And then you ask the author, no, it wasn't. The flower was a flower that I put in there. I wasn't thinking that. But sometimes we have a magical imagination when we read. And it's a good thing, but it's not always accurate. Symbolism in literature is a good thing because it broadens your horizons. You can look at something the way that you think it is, the way that you feel fits your imagination best. Have you ever read a book and then watched the movie with the same title? What was your experience, Alex?
Actually, I watched movie by Macbeth.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a movie from the play of Shakespeare.
Right.
And sometimes I prefer the novel.
Exactly. And sometimes, you prefer the movie. Or how about you? Have you ever read a book?
Not really.
Hi, welcome.
Just the movie, or either the movie or the book, not
Not
them
both.
together. Yeah.
Would you mind sitting here next to What's her name? Layla. And it's spelled L-E-I? Oh, okay. Okay. What a beautiful name. I like that. So we're all here, and it's 6:02.
Vi sitter här. Hvis noen kommer, da kan vi sitte derfor sitter jeg her. Så beklager. Hvis noen kommer, da kan jeg gå.
No, it's all good.
Koordinere.
Well, but most of us are here, so without further ado, so we're here today because of Toni Morrison. And I'm going to ask you, because I asked everybody else the same question. Have you ever heard of her before today?
Wonderful. So everyone, today, from today on, then you know who she is. And I'm very happy to be the person that introduces you to her. So she's in her 80s now. She's still living, and she's supposed to give a lecture somewhere in Holland sometime this year. I want to go, but I'm probably not going to be able to. But I want to see recordings of it. I want to see everything, because I hope that people will ask her the questions that I have about her novels. She was the first African American woman to win a Nobel Prize of Literature. You've heard of the Nobel Prize, right?
Yes.
Everybody has. All right. But usually when people think of the Nobel Prize, they think of the Peace Prize, right? The Nobel Peace Prize. So she won a Nobel Prize for literature. She was the first African American woman to win this. There is a big significance for that in American culture. How many of you have heard about how it is in the United States regarding race and everything? Can you tell me a little bit about what you've heard?
Well, my perception in general, and taking into account what actually still happens, is that there are many people still that are basically racist, and they do consider that African Americans should not be as equal as white people living in the U.S. I have family in the U.S. as
In the
well.
US. So you have that experience of
Yeah.
what kind of feeling, what vibe
Exactly.
you get from the society and the culture.
The feeling is that it's not the same right for both African Americans and, let's say, the rest of the people.
Even if officially that's
Yes,
that's
officially
no longer
it's,
allowed.
of course, everybody's equal, let's say. But unofficially, it doesn't stand.
It's still there. The
Yeah,
vibe
exactly.
is still there. Do you understand vibe? What do you mean by vibe? Vibe is a short word for vibration. So it's not quite, but it's there. The vibe. It's a feeling that you get, and that feeling that you get is something that might not be. Things are not equal between blacks and whites. By the way, it is okay to see black. It's okay to see black. It is okay to see African American. It is politically correct to say that. People will not be offended if you say, I met an African American man, or I met a black man somewhere and I talked to him. It's not offensive. But I think it's important for me to tell you about what is not okay, just so you know, because sometimes you hear it in music, you hear it in Toni Morrison novels. She uses language that's accurate, that's the language of the people. So if the character that's speaking doesn't have an education, he will sound, and as you read the words, you can almost hear how they speak. So in African American vernacular, have you ever heard of this? Anybody?
Yes.
Yes? Tell me what you heard about it.
Well, I've heard that it's almost like its own language with its own grammar. A lot of words from the English language, but the grammar is different, and I've heard this vernacular is almost or basically the same all over.
Yes, all over the United
Yeah.
States. All over the United States.
Mhm.
You can get a group of African Americans anywhere in the States, and if they speak African American vernacular, they can switch from their language, whatever it is, whatever accent, into this. And we'll deal with it today because in the excerpts that we'll be reading, there is some of it. African American vernacular. It is a form of English. It is a form of English spoken by Black people in America. It has another name also, a name that is only allowed
in certain circles. Ebonics. So Ebonics would be the vulgar term for African American vernacular, the informal name for it, Ebonics. Ebonics. So you will hear this joke sometimes, and it's only allowed in a group of African American people. They'll say, oh, I speak I'm bilingual. I speak English and I speak Ebonics. They'll say I'm bilingual because it is a different language, and it was created for protection.
So we're not talking about the dialect now. Does it originate from American English or?
Absolutely. It originates from American English.
So they change some words, let's say?
It is more of a dialect than it is another language, but amongst themselves they say, okay, it is another language, but it's more of a dialect. It has a different pronunciation, it has some elements, some words are different, and the grammar is different, some of it. But you can still recognize it.
That's what I was gonna ask. If I hear you or someone.
You can understand it.
Okay.
But if they speak really fast and they use slang terms that are only present in that vernacular, you might not.
Okay.
So some of Toni Morrison characters, they are people who do not have a higher education. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes this is associated with not having an education. So people who don't have an education, they won't speak eloquently, they won't use vocabulary that's sophisticated or elegant. They will use language that's lowering register, meaning that is, if you write a term paper in college, and if you use African American vernacular, you will fail because it's not formal. It's not formal speech. It's not formal written language in any way. But some of the characters, most of the characters in Toni Morrison books, they are African American. She is somebody that has given a voice to African Americans, especially women. And if you think of the African American culture, if you think of the powerful people in African American culture, you think of basketball players in the 90s. If you think of Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and you think of even Michael Jackson and all the Jacksons and all, if you think of that, it's mostly men. So she gave a voice to women in a very special, very particular way. She became known when she wrote the book, The Bluest Eye. What do you suppose a book like that would be about? You can just shout out what you think anytime. The Bluest Eye.
Sad.
Something sad.
Yeah.
Okay, because you're thinking as in blue, as in sad. All right?
I'm thinking discrimination.
Discrimination. On what sense?
Blue eyes are not common for Black people.
Right. That's exactly the key in this. This was the first book published by Toni Morrison. The very first, 1970, even before I was born, a little bit before. So when she published this book, she was not a Nobel Prize winner yet. This was 1970. She published this, and there was a lot of strong reactions towards The Bluest Eye. It was banned in some high schools. Can you imagine that? It was banned because the language is very strong, very honest. The characters are very brutally honest. Have you ever heard this expression before? Yeah, brutally honest. When they are brutally honest, they will use language that comes from within, from the gut, and they will say everything. So this book is about a little girl, and she was discriminated against, and she felt so bad about herself that she felt that she would only be beautiful if she had blue eyes. So she wanted to have blue eyes. She had a series of traumas in her childhood, including a parent saying she was ugly and not good enough. So she
felt like if I have blue eyes, then I'll be perfect. I don't want to say too much because you might want to read the book, so I don't want to tell you too much about it. But this was the very first book that she wrote, and then she got a lot of attention for it, negative and positive. Negative because the characters in there talk about discrimination, and although the United States even had segregation, are you aware of the segregation in the United States? And think of this, you go into the bus and you can't sit in the front because of the color of your skin, you have to sit in the back. And then you can't drink from the same drinking fountain. So it was a very tough time for Black people. And a lot of people don't want to remember this, they don't want to be reminded of it. So in this book, the reality hits. And even though it was published in the 70s, in 1970, the story takes place years before. Have you heard of Shirley Temple? Yes, she was a little girl, a singer, an actress, many, many years ago, decades and decades ago. And she was really popular. She was blonde and blue-eyed, and then they made a little doll out of her, and like porcelain doll back in the day. And then one of the girls, the little girls in this book, not the main character, Pecola. Pecola is the main character in here. Not her, but somebody else. She hated the doll. Why do I have to love this doll? Why do I have to think she is beautiful? So you see different voices. The voice of discrimination hitting somebody and making them feel like they're not good enough, and somebody who feels, hey, I'm good enough. I don't need the Shirley Temple doll. So nowadays you have Black Barbies, you have Black dolls, and so that was not very common many, many years ago. So Toni Morrison, when she did this, she revolutionized the entire culture with this book. And there was a lot of talk, good and bad. And the book is banned in the high school, that's big. Yes?
I don't remember. What was your profession? Is she a professor or is something else?
Yes, she was an editor.
Journalist.
She was not a journalist, but an editor.
Okay.
She was an editor. Later on, she became a professor. She became a professor later on in life. But as an editor, she was in a capacity of a teacher because she taught people how to put the words and how to. She was that's what they say of her, the people whose books she edited. And so what happened to her? She came from Ohio in the States. Ohio is not a famous state by any means. When you think of the United States, just off the top of your head, tell me a few states from the United States.
California.
California was the very first one, okay. What else?
Minnesota.
Minnesota, wow, okay, that I didn't expect.
Because, in the history, many Norwegians emigrated to
Oh,
Minnesota.
right. So there is a connection that culturally you've been exposed to this environment, and then you learned, okay,
Yes.
Minnesota, and all right. But usually California always pops up, New York, so but Ohio is not in any way like that. So Toni Morrison grew up in Ohio. And Ohio is a state where there's not a lot of stuff happening. So her imagination grew wild within, this is a talent that she had, to have that imagination, living somewhere that's not where she's not getting a lot of input from the outside. It's a very quiet state.
Is it in the center? I don't remember now.
Ohio
is situated in the map.
I wish we had a big map. Do you have one? Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get one here because it's nowhere exciting. What happens with the United States, because there are how many states in the United States? 50. 50 states, so it is huge. when you look at the United States, it's at the very top, it's on the top there, Ohio. It's on the top.
It's North US.
Yes, I guess I'm very bad with directions, and I even tell everyone that knows me, don't give me a map. Walk with me and tell me where I'm supposed to go. So don't say, oh, you go and turn left and then go north, and don't tell me that. I'll get lost.
Is this state adjacent to Canada? Situated near the
It's
border?
near. It's near, but not that near.
Okay.
But then it's not near the sea or something.
That's the United States.
It's inland, yeah.
Mainland,
It's inland.
not
Let me see if this is big enough. Yes, yeah. See if it's big, yeah. I was just, I found the exact same one.
Okay, that's the same, yeah.
It's not so
On the
far away.
on the eastern part of United States.
Yeah, close to Canada.
Close to
The
Canada.
borders.
But being from somewhere where, if you think of states like Ohio, Idaho, and those Oregon, so those are not very exciting places. Idaho is potato state, if you ever heard of it. Idaho. Idaho is potato state. So, those are weird names. Idaho and Ohio. Some people get them confused. But Idaho is potato state, and then you think of Ohio as Toni Morrison state, eh? That's pretty good to remember Ohio like that. Okay, so she became very, very well known after writing this book, but she wasn't mainstream. She went on after this to write a book named Sulla. And Sulla, again, Sulla is a woman's name, and it's a very feminine perspective in here. Friendship, and I don't want to say too much because I want you to be able to read later on and say, oh, she spoiled that for me, without saying that. So, very feminine perspective, women, friendship, very an African American. The roots of her literature are African American in essence because she gives a voice to African Americans in her books. So, but she wasn't mainstream. She wrote Song of Solomon. And have you ever heard about Icarus? Yes? What do you know about him? Anything?
He died. There is a story of Icarus and Daedalus, and
I hope it's the same one that I'm thinking of.
I don't know, because what I'm thinking is Greek, basically. It comes from a Greek mythology. So
Are you thinking of the Icarus that wanted to fly?
Yes.
That's him. All right. So there's a character here that wanted the same thing. He even built wings and everything.
Yeah.
But I'm not telling you what happened to him. All right. She went on to write beautiful books. She wrote Jazz. Jazz is about love. There's a love triangle, a very strange love triangle, because one of the people in it is dead. That's all I'm saying. Yes. You might want to read that. And then she wrote a book named Love. And then you might think, oh, that's probably a corny story about love. You know what corny means?
Yeah.
Corny? Corny is something obviously cliched, and you see, for example, think of a romantic story, and in the end there's a guy on the horse and a woman sitting with him, and they go out in the sunset. You know, that's corny. But that's not what this is at all. I'll just give you the gist. Won't kill it for you. They're two little girls. I love this cover because the two little girls, they represent two very close friends. Friendship is a theme, a constant theme in Toni Morrison novels. Friendship between women. And when you think about that, especially in this day and age with Gossip Girl and the Kardashians and all of that, you don't think of sisterhood and friends, and you think of a lot of disputes on Twitter. You think of this stuff, And this is so far from it. This was real friendship. There's a lot of stories of friendship between women, genuine friendship. But there's nothing corny about this love here. Each chapter represents a type of love. So let me give you one, and this will come as a shock to you. It says
Stranger. No.
stranger.
Stranger.
So how can you love a stranger? What does that even mean? Then you'll read the book and you'll find out. There is friend. You can love a friend.
So it's not one story. It's a.
No, it's a chapter.
Okay.
Each chapter has a name,
Yeah.
but it's still the same story. Yeah, and she divides her books in different ways, not always in chronological order, which means that you have to really pay attention and see, oh, is this happening now, or is he thinking this, or who's speaking right now? Because the narrative shifts. And what does that mean? That the narrative shifts. It shifts sometimes from first person to third person. Sometimes you may start a chapter, and I can say this about each and every one of her books. You might be reading a chapter, and then it says I, and you say, oh, wait a minute, who is this? It's one of the characters telling the story. That's first person, a narrator who is also a part of the story. And sometimes it's a removed third person narrator who's not even, this person is not there, but they know everything. What kind of narrator is that? Have you ever heard about this? Yeah. Omniscient. An omniscient narrator is somebody who knows everything that's in the head of the characters, somebody who's almost like a god, observing everything, knows everything, but who's not a part of the story in many cases. You can sometimes have an omniscient first-person narrator. It's kind of rare, but you can have that. So her narrative shifts. Different people tell stories, their own story, their own perspective in the stories. And what happens also with this is that the chronological order allows for, it's not 1910 and 1920, it just shifts all the time. So you can have flashbacks and flash forwards as well, what we call in literature, flashbacks and flash forwards. So this is something that makes the narrative exciting and unexpected as well. And there's something that you will find that I particularly love is interior monologues. You know what monologues are? Somebody talking on their own, sometimes to themselves. They might be addressing a ghost. We don't know. But what is one of the most famous monologues in literature that you can think of?
Hamlet.
Yes, Hamlet, Shakespeare. Yeah, and it starts.
To be or not to be.
Yes. To be or not to be. So that monologue right there is the most famous of all, and it's about suicide and about so much more than that also. So a lot of the times you will find in these novels interior monologues where you know what the character is thinking, and sometimes they don't come in until way into the story, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's what they were thinking. So it's something, the characteristics of her, the narrative shifts in her novels. Different people start telling the story, and sometimes she warns you. Because sometimes, for instance, in the novel we're going to be talking about tonight, in God Help the Child, each chapter is the name of somebody, of a character. And when the chapter has that name, it's because that person is telling the story. So she warns you in a way or another. She lets you know who's telling the story. And the chapters without any names, they are omniscient narrators telling the story. Okay?
Excuse me.
Yes.
So why do we have this kind of title for this book?
God help the child.
Yes.
Why is the name of the book God Help the Child?
Yes.
Oh, but that was the very last question you were supposed to ask today. Can I hold you to that? Great, because that's the last question we'll answer today.
Yes.
Okay. So here, I want us to start talking about why we're here. This book. Why did I choose this book, and what is the importance of this book? This is the most recent novel that she has written. She's a living author, and she just published this the end of last year. And I want you to look at this cover and tell me what you see, without reservations.
A black
Yes?
woman.
Yes? Don't be afraid to say whatever else you're thinking.
I think very contrasts.
The contrast?
Yeah, the color and the black and
The
the
black
white.
woman and white.
Yes.
And also we cannot see the face of
We can't see her face.
the woman.
Now I'm just gonna do this just for the purpose of this exercise, okay? I normally don't do that. I just want you to look at the color of my skin and her skin, and then tell me what you see.
It's different.
In what way?
You're lighter. And then here.
Right, and I'm actually very dark. And it's not offensive to me to say this, just so you know. So I'm actually very, very dark, but she's even darker than me. And should that be a problem? I know everyone's gonna say no. It is the year 2015. It should not be a problem. But you will see that in this book, you will understand why it is. Because if I should have brought a magazine. If you get any given magazine and if you just open any page, chances are that 99% will be a white woman with white features. That's what society tells us is beautiful. And in a lot of Toni Morrison novels, she talks about how African American women feel put in that position where they're not considered beautiful. But then you might say, oh, but I've seen that black, what is that black model, Tyra Banks and Naomi Campbell and this and then let's talk about the white ones. There's so many more. And then society beats into our brain that that's what's beautiful. And that's the same with the Bluest Eye, the little girl thinking, Shirley Temple, yeah, I have to look like that. I have to be like that. So we're going to start talking about this now, and it's called Sweetness. The excerpts you will be reading come from chapters of the novel entitled Sweetness. What do you think about that title? What does it tell you? What does it make you think of? Just tell me without reservations.
I don't like your titles. They sound corny to me.
They sound corny to you.
I'm sorry.
You don't like the title Sweetness, because it makes it seem like it's something great.
It's too obvious in a way that in a way I'm not
Right,
saying
but that's on purpose.
Yeah.
That's on purpose. The corniness is on purpose so that you will feel that, and then you get an extreme shock
Yeah.
because that's not what you were expecting. So I think it's done with a purpose. And have you ever seen a movie named Mummy Dearest? You know who Joan Crawford is? Yes. She was a woman that a lot of people say that she was not a very nice person. She was horrible to her kids. But the movie about how horrible she was to her kids was named Mommy Dearest. So you think, Mommy Dearest, oh, it must be a movie about somebody that was wonderful, and they made a tribute to her, Mommy Dearest, but it's the opposite. So this is what happens here with that. Okay? This will take about maybe 10 minutes or so, but we'll get into it, and I'll tell you different things, and as you go, please, if you have words that you want to know about, if you have questions you want to ask about, so as I read,
feel free to.
I can
I think she's brilliant.
more. Yeah, we really more than one.
So what happens is a few of the chapters in God Help the Child have this name, sweetness, for a particular reason. For a particular reason. Every time sweetness speaks, sweetness is somebody. And do you remember what I told you about in this book? Each chapter has somebody's name, and that means?
It's the person who narrates.
It's the person who's narrating the story at that moment. And this is what sweetness had to say. So I'm going to get started now, and I hope you immerse yourselves into this, but if you see a word or anything that you need, just underline it, and then you can ask me after I'm finished. All right? Mm-hmm. Sweetness by Toni Morrison. It's not my fault, so you can't blame me. I didn't do it and have no idea how it happened. It didn't take more than an hour after they pulled her out from between my legs for me to realize something was wrong, really wrong. She was so black she scared me. Midnight black, so the knees black. I'm light-skinned with good hair, what we call high yellow, and so is Lola Ann's father. Ain't nobody in my family anywhere near that color. Tar is the closest I can think of. Yet her hair don't go with the skin. It's different, straight but curly, like the hair on those naked tribes in Australia. You might think she's a throwback, but a throwback to what? You should have seen my grandmother. She passed for white, married a white man, and never said another word to any of her children. Any letter she got from my mother or my aunts, she sent right back, unopened. Finally, they got the message of no message and let her be. Almost all mulatto types and quadroons did that back in the day. If they had the right kind of hair, that is. Can you imagine how many white folks have Negro blood hiding in their veins? Guess, 20%, I heard. My own mother, Lila Mae, could have passed easy, but she chose not to. She told me the price she paid for that decision. When she and my father went to the courthouse to get married, there were 2 Bibles, and they had to put their hands on the one reserved for Negroes. The one that was for white people's hands, the Bible, the other one, the Bible. Can you beat it? My mother was a housekeeper for a rich white couple. They ate every meal she cooked and insisted she scrub their backs while she sat in the tub, and God knows what other intimate things they made her do, but no touching of the same Bible. Some of you probably think it's a bad thing to group ourselves according to skin color. The lighter, the better. In social clubs, neighborhoods, churches, sororities, even colored schools. But how else can we hold on to a little dignity? How else can we avoid being spit on in a drugstore, elbowed at the bus stop, having to walk in the gutter to let whites have the whole sidewalk, being charged a nickel at the grocer's for a paper bag that's free to white shoppers, let alone all the name-calling? I heard all of that and much, much more. But because of my mother's skin color, she wasn't stopped from trying on hats or using the ladies' room in the department stores, and my father could try on shoes in the front part of the shoe store, not in the back room. Neither one of them would let themselves drink from a colored-only fountain, even if they were dying of thirst. I hate to say it, but from the very beginning in the maternity ward, the baby, Lola Ann, embarrassed me. Her birth skin was pale, like all babies, even African ones, but it changed fast. I thought I was going crazy when she turned blue-black right before my eyes. I know I went crazy for a minute, because just for a few seconds, I held a blanket over her face and pressed. But I couldn't do that. No matter how much I wish she hadn't been born with. with that terrible collar. I even thought of giving her away to an orphanage someplace. But I was scared to be one of those mothers who leave their babies on church steps. Recently, I heard about a couple in Germany, white as snow, who had a dark-skinned baby nobody could explain. Twins, I believe, one white, one colored. But I don't know if it's true. All I know is that, for me, nursing her was like having a pickaninny sucking my tit. I went to bottle feeding as soon as I got home. My husband, Louis, is a porter, and when he got back off the rails, he looked at me like I really was crazy, and looked at the baby like she was from planet Jupiter. He wasn't a cussing man, so when he said, "God damn, what the hell is this?" I knew we were in trouble. That was what did it, what caused the fights between me and him. It broke our marriage to pieces. We had 3 good years together. But when she was born, he blamed me and treated Lola Ann like she was a stranger. More than that, an enemy. He never touched her. I never did convince him that I ain't never, ever fooled around with another man. He was dead sure I was lying. We argued and argued till I told her blackness had to be from his side of his own family, not mine. That was when it got worse. So bad he just up and left, and I had to look for another, cheaper place to live. I did the best I could. I knew enough not to take her with me when I applied for landlord, so I left her with a teenage cousin to babysit. I didn't take her outside much anyway, because when I pushed her in the baby carriage, people would lean down and peek in to say something nice, and then give a start or jump back before frowning. That hurt. I could have been the babysitter if our skin colors were reversed. It was hard enough just being a colored woman, even a high yellow one, trying to rent in a decent part of the city. Back in the 90s, when Lola Ann was born, the law was against discriminating in who you could rent to, but not many landlords paid attention to it. They made up reasons to keep you out. But I got lucky with Mr. Lee, though I know he upped the rent $7 from what he'd advertised. And he had a fit if you're a minute late with the money. I told her to call me Sweetness instead of Mother or Mama. It was safer. Her being that black and having what I think are 2 thick lips and calling me Mama would have confused people. Besides, she has funny colored eyes. Pearl black with a blue tint, something witchy about them too. So it was just us 2 for a long while, and I don't have to tell you how hard it is being an abandoned wife. I guess Louis felt a little bit bad after leaving us like that, because a few months later, he found out where I'd moved on and started sending me money once a month, though I never asked him to and didn't go to court to get it. His $50 money orders and my night job at the hospital got me and Lila Ann off welfare, which was a good thing. I wish I would stop calling it welfare and go back to the word they used when my mother was a girl. Then it was called relief. Sounds much better. Like it's just a short-term breather while you get yourself together. Besides, those welfare clerks are mean as spit. When finally I got work and didn't need them anymore, I was making more money than they ever did. I guess meanness filled out their skimpy paychecks, which was why they treated us like beggars, especially when they looked at Lola Ann and then back at me, like I was trying to cheat or something. Things got better, but I still had to be careful, very careful, in how I raised her. I had to be strict, very strict. Lola Ann needed to learn how to behave, how to keep her head down and not make trouble. I don't care how many times she changes her name, her collar is a cross she will always carry. But it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not. Oh yeah, I feel bad sometimes about how I treated Lola Ann when she was little, but you have to understand, I had to protect her. She didn't know the world. With that skin, there was no point in being tough or sassy, even when you're right. Not in a world or you could be sent to juvenile lockup for talking back or fighting in school. A world where you'd be the last one hired and the first one fired. She didn't know any of that, or how her black skin would scare white people or make them laugh and try to trick her. I once saw a girl nowhere near as dark as Lillian, who couldn't have been more than 10 years old, tripped by one of a group of white boys. And when she tried to scramble up, another one put his foot on her behind and knocked her flat again. Those boys held their stomachs and bent over with laughter. Long after she got away, they were still giggling, so proud of themselves. If I hadn't been watching through the bus window, I would have helped her, pulled her away from that white trash. See, if I hadn't trained Lila Ann properly, she wouldn't have known to always cross the street and avoid white boys. But the lessons I taught her paid off, and in the end, she made me as proud as a peacock. I wasn't a bad mother. You have to know that. But I may have done some hurtful things to my only child because I had to protect her. Had to. All because of skin privileges. At first, I couldn't see past all that black. To know who she was and just plain love her. But I do. I really do. I think she understands now. I think so. Last 2 times I saw her, she was, well, striking. Kind of bald and confident. Each time she came to see me, I forgot just how black she really was, because she was using it to her advantage in beautiful white clothes. Taught me a lesson I should have known all along. What you do to children matters, and they might never forget. As soon as she could, she left me all alone in that awful apartment. She got as far away from me as she could, dolled herself up, and got a big-time job in California. She don't call me or visit anymore. She sends me money and stuff every now and then, but I ain't seen her. And I don't know how long. I prefer this place, Winston House, to those big, expensive nursing homes outside the city. Mine is small, homey, cheaper, with 24-hour nurses and a doctor who comes twice a week. I'm only 63, too young for pasture, but I came down with some creeping bone disease. So good care is vital. The boredom is worse than the weakness or the pain, but the nurses are lovely. One just kissed me on the cheek when I told her I was going to be a grandmother. Her smile and her compliments were fit for someone about to be crowned. I showed her the note on blue paper that I got from Lillian. Well, she signed it bride, but I never paid that any attention. Her words sounded giddy. Guess what? I am so happy to pass along this news. I'm going to have a baby. I'm too thrilled. And hope you are too. I reckon the thrill is about the baby, not his father, because she doesn't mention him at all. I wonder if he is as black as she is. If so, she needn't worry like I did. Things have changed a mite from when I was young. Blue blacks are all over TV, in fashion magazines, commercials, even starring in movies. There is no return address on the envelope, so I guess I'm still the bad parent, being punished forever till the day I die for the well-intended and, in fact, necessary way I brought her up. I know she hates me. Our relationship is down to her sending me money. I have to say I'm grateful for the cash, because I don't have to beg for extras like some of the other patients. If I want my own fresh deck of cards for solitaire, I can get it and not need to play with a dirty, worn one in the lounge. And I can buy my special face cream. But I'm not fooled. I know the money she sends is a way to stay away and quiet down the little bit of conscience she's got left. If I sound irritable, ungrateful, part of it is because underneath is regret. All the little things I didn't do or did wrong. I remember when she had her first period and how I reacted, or the times I shouted when she stumbled or dropped something. True, I was really upset, even repelled by her black skin when she was born. And at first I thought no, I have to push those memories away fast. No point. I know I did the best for her under the circumstances. When my husband ran out on us, Lola Ann was a burden, a heavy one, but I bore it well. Yes, I was tough on her. You bet I was. By the time she turned 12, going on 13, I had to be even tougher. She was talking back, refusing to eat what I cooked, primping her hair. When I braided it, she'd go to school and unbraid it. I couldn't let her go bad. I slammed the lid and warned her about the names she'd be called. Still, some of my schooling must have rubbed off. See how she turned out? A rich career girl. Can you beat it? Now she's pregnant. Good move, Lillian. If you think mothering is all cooing, booties, and diapers, you're in for a big shock. You and your nameless boyfriend, husband, pickup, whoever, imagine. Ooh, a baby. Kitchi kitchi coo. Listen to me. You are about to find out what it takes, how the world is, how it works, and how it changes when you're a parent. Good luck, and God help the child. So did that answer your question? Yes? So why do you think she said that? God help the child. Which child was she talking about?
About her grandchild.
And what was she thinking about this child? How the child would be? You can say it.
Black.
Black. How black the child would be? When I read this for the first time, I was angry. And when I read the words, I do a little bit of like dramatic reading as I'm putting myself in the character, but that's not me at all because I think it's terrible. And when you see, I asked you to look at the cover and how she described her daughter.
Yeah, she described it as she dresses in a nice clothes,
Mm-hmm.
and that shows off her black skin. So she's not afraid, at least, to show off in a way.
That's true. And can you imagine that in spite all this racism coming from the mother, she still grew up to be a successful career woman, and now she's pregnant. But don't think that I'm giving you away anything because there's so much that happens in the story that I'm not telling you. Not even if you beg me, because I want you to read the book eventually. So she turned out well, but how does she feel about the mother, if you had to guess based on the vibe that you get?
She doesn't like her mother much, or at least we have the narration now from the mother. So the feeling is that she doesn't love her, the daughter doesn't love her. And as you said, that she's sending her money just so as to, she doesn't want to say, okay, I don't care for my mother at all. So I will give her the money that will help her at least to sustain herself.
Absolutely.
And to take off the burden in a way.
And you could feel that in a tone with the mother.
Yes.
Mother understands this. Now, I want to ask you a question about this mother. Is she a good mother?
In that circumstance, I do think so, because she has to protect her child, because on that in that historical context, the single mother cannot do anything.
Okay, so you're thinking of her, that's interesting perspective. You're thinking of her also as a single mother.
Yes.
Right, so
Very
she's trying to protect her. So you think she is a good mother?
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think nowadays we think it's not a good mother. She wasn't a good mother, but we can judge her in these days. We have to think this was the situation at that time.
What she was going through. Okay, so you're thinking, contextualizing her situation, maybe what she was going through, and compared to nowadays how things are. So you're giving her the benefit of the doubt, almost like she must have had a reason. How about you, Alex? Do you think she's a good mother?
I'm hiding.
Are you struggling with mixed feelings about this?
Yes, because what I really don't like is the lack of contact with the baby,
Mm-hmm.
physical contact.
Okay, can you tell me where, like, does anybody remember where in here she talks about that? You can take a look at the text, go back and see, there is, she actually talks about that, the physical contact.
She didn't like even to breastfeed the child.
Exactly.
Yes.
She didn't want, and
Mhm.
when I read that, it's very difficult for me to even, and why was that? What did she say about that? I want to write some words on the board that, if you can find it, or if you remember, I'm gonna,
All I know is that,
Piccaninny?
yeah,
In,
the picture.
yes, and what does that mean? Have you ever heard that before?
Piccaninny, I don't know the meaning of the
Okay.
I know something.
Yeah, okay. I'll tell you where it comes from, but it's very offensive.
Okay.
It's supposed to sound animal-like almost, but it comes from this word here. It's a word that comes from Portuguese.
Ah.
And it evolved and evolved and evolved. Yes,
does it mean something like small? Something?
it means it's smaller than small.
Yeah. Mhm.
You have pequeno, which is small, and then pequenino is even smaller,
Ah,
like tiny. It means tiny. But yes, she was almost putting the quality of an animal on that baby, calling the baby that she didn't want to have physical contact. So, Alex, that gives you the feeling that she wasn't a good mother because of the lack of physical contact.
Mm-mm. Even if I agree with some of them about the social context, and so this kind of relation was something that was necessary.
Right. There is something worse that she did.
She thought of killing it. She
Yes.
put the pillow on it.
Put a blanket on the baby's face for, it was not for that long, and pressed. I felt that was horrible, and it sounds almost unreal, the situation, and you might think that kind of stuff doesn't happen. It's just a book, but I'm very sad to say it isn't. There are people like that. There are people in the United States at this very moment who actually bleach the kids' skin with acids and different things to make them
Lighter.
lighter.
Like singer Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson.
See, allegedly, he didn't do anything. He had vitiligo. That's what he said.
What is it? It's a disease.
It's a disease that makes your skin lose
Oh.
the color. He said he never bleached his skin. He also said he only had one plastic surgery.
Yeah.
So, so yes, but I believe that a lot of our perception of what he did, of what Michael Jackson did, was that he was trying to be white to the extreme. That's the perception that a lot of the world got from him. And he didn't lose a lot of popularity as an entertainer, but a lot of people lost respect for who he was. But allegedly, he had vitiligo. We don't know. Now we never will. So, but that's part of the reason. Can you tell me something else? I have another question regarding this mother. I want you guys to tell me how was she physically? Did you get her description?
Personally, I got a bit confused. I understand that she was lighter.
Yes.
But when she was talking about the family, her family, I got a bit confused because of the things that her family was doing before, like her mother was a housekeeper.
And some of them could pass for white. Yeah, so
So
there is a lot of miscegenation in the United States. This is the mixing of races, miscegenation. Some of it was, you can think of, a lot of people start singing Ebony and Ivory and people, how beautiful, but some of it is not a beautiful story. It's because of slavery in America. There was slavery and the slaves were abused. they were abused and forced into relationships with the white masters and stuff like that. So in this book here, Beloved, which also became a movie, if you are interested in watching, with Oprah Winfrey. Oprah Winfrey is an actress in the movie. Oprah Winfrey is best friends with Toni Morrison, loves her and promotes her books and everything. So in this story here is a story also with a mother, but the mother here really does kill her baby and she goes to prison. But that's not the end of the story. There's so much more to it. You should still read it. So the mother kills the baby, also to protect her. But you have to read it to know why, from what, and what it was. But in this one, they talk about slavery and how one of the women was assaulted by the white masters. And miscegenation, in a lot of cases in America, when you see somebody who is really dark with colored eyes, and then that happens. It's very rare, but it does happen. My mom has green eyes. Her sister has blue eyes because her father was Polish. And there's a lot of other people in Brazil who went through miscegenation. Some good, some bad. There was slavery in Brazil as well. There was no slavery in Norway, as far as I can tell. Not black slave. They didn't have any ships from Africa here.
So they might have been involved in.
Yes, we were involved, but
Right, so okay.
but
They were involved in it.
Yes, if
Right, but there were no ships with black people that came
no, I
here.
don't think so. But if you saw black man, in Norway, then it would be people.
Back in the day,
Yeah.
right. So the story of slavery has a lot to do with miscegenation in the United States. A lot. So it's not always the, yes.
You see, if you start to think of some people are better than others, and terrible things.
Yeah, she even
Because,
said that,
this
yeah.
mother, she is a product of such this way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, she's almost killing her own child. But that has happened all over the world.
That has happened.
Yes,
That's
in
true.
Norway, they kill their newborn children.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so long ago.
Exactly. So
Because
this happens, this kind of
there's,
stuff happens.
servants, female servants,
Mhm.
they're raped by
By the
sons
masters.
in
and-
yes, the masters, and what should they do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The men, they're
They
free,
forced,
yes,
yeah.
and the women, they're outcasts, and they have to survive. They have to kill their.
They had to kill their children.
Isn't long ago. And
Right.
in China, the second child, or the first child was a girl,
Yeah, so it happens.
Yeah, so we have to be ashamed, all of us.
All of us. So this is not
it's
just
not just
unique to the United
Mhm.
States, right? And what happens when it comes to mothers in this book here, A Mercy, there's also an act of mercy by a mother to her child.
Yes.
Have you
What of the future? There is
Yes.
a future. Mm.
if they
It's
yeah,
terrible.
right.
It's,
Yeah. Yeah, it made me so angry, some parts of it. It really got to me, especially when it says the lighter the better, and how black was she, and that's horrible to hear. In this novel here, they have a mother who commits an act of mercy for her child, and there is sisterhood here as well. But these are themes that are very when you first came today, I told you there's something very special about this, that it really isn't for everyone, but usually it's women and African American, especially African American women, that find an empathy and almost feel like they're part of it. It's very special to that culture. And I want to talk about language now, which is something that you might have noticed. Did you see anything that didn't sound right? That didn't look right?
Grammatically?
Yes, as in grammar or.
Oh,
There were a couple of cases where they used the verb didn't agree with.
Yes.
It was like the hair don't go with the skin.
Yes.
And
She don't something?
yeah,
Yeah.
for instance, yeah, she don't call or visit anymore.
Yeah. The hair don't go. She don't call. What else was there?
Well, and I'm not quite sure, but avoid being spit on. Is that?
No, that's all right.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, that was.
I was hoping so they would bring this up.
With that.
Because that's African American vernacular.
Oh.
You can't write this down. If you write a term paper, you can't write this down. You can say it, and even if you say it, say it with your friend. Like if you're with your friends, oh, I ain't hungry. That's all right. But if you're presenting a master's thesis, don't say it. Yeah. So it's not academic. It's African American vernacular. She don't African American vernacular. It is all of this. It's grammatically wrong, but it is linguistically acceptable. It is linguistically acceptable. Anything that promotes communication is linguistically acceptable. So if you understand, if I come in and I say, I ain't hungry, I'm not going to Burger King with you. You understand me, you know, she's not hungry. When they say she don't call, you know that she means she doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So when you promote communication, you're using linguistically acceptable language. But it's not acceptable in terms of academic and business, none of that. So you have
It's in movies as well.
Sorry.
Sorry.
You can.
No, I just commented on that, but it's.
using movies, yes,
Yeah, I
you're
mean,
right. They say it all the time.
It doesn't seem, I agree, it's grammatically it's not correct, but I hadn't considered it as African American
You
dialect.
didn't
in
know,
a way.
that's where it comes from. Yes.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
I
Yes.
hadn't-
Yeah, I was thinking. Well, I didn't find any instances of it here in this text, but this when you make the double or triple negatives in sentences.
And I ain't got no money. Yeah.
Mhm, for instance,
That's
that
where
also
I say that
vernacular?
it hurts to say that. Yeah, I ain't got no money. That's a triple negative.
Is that a?
That's African American vernacular as well. Please don't ever write this down. I ain't got no money. That's African American vernacular, and there is triple negative there. Yeah, that's part of it as well. And the N word is part of the African American vernacular. And this word here, I can't even say it. People can say it to one another in a group of Black people, but if you say it to them, like if you say it to them, you, specifically you might get shot. So just a heads up. So they can say it to each other. They can call each other the N word. But you can't call them that. This is informal. This one here, you should never say anywhere. This is the worst word you can call anybody. Any person of color, not just Black. Even if they're Mexican or if they are even Asian people, or if they are of people of color, if they're Indian, and it's not that they're dark skinned, it's people of color. There's a book named The Beauty of Color. Do you know who Iman is?
Oh,
The
yeah.
model
The model,
married to
yeah.
David Bowie. She wrote a book called The Beauty of Color. And she has makeup for women, Black, Asian, and Hispanic, all sorts of different women, the beauty of color. So people use this word for anybody of color, and they think it's supposed to be very offensive, and it's really bad, should never be said. In the text here, there is a word it was acceptable in the 50s, in the 60s, and no longer acceptable, that they use. Did you find it?
I still don't understand. Why do we have the triple negative there? Because in my understanding, I just think that
You think
it's
it's
a
only two?
double
Yeah,
negative.
double. Is 8 is already 2 negatives.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my first hearing. Alright, thanks.
But yeah, this word here, it was acceptable to say Negro in the 50s and the 60s. Even nowadays, it's not. You either say Black or you say African American or a person of color. That's all right, because you don't say Negro. You definitely don't say this. And yeah, this one is just offensive and really bad. Yes.
Yes, what I haven't seen before, quadroons?
Quadroon. A quadroon is somebody of African American ancestry mixed with something else, somebody who is mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Mixed, a person who is racially mixed. Quadroon.
And mulatto as well.
Yeah, mulatto has, depending on what culture you go to, it has different meanings. It can mean somebody like me who is very dark but has some sort of white ancestry somewhere, like my grandpa is Polish. So I'm mulatto because I'm not 100% Black. Or it can be somebody who is half Black. It depends on the culture, but it's definitely somebody mixed Black and white. Was there any other words? I want to go through the words and expressions that you guys want to ask about.
Sororities, it's in the first page.
Yes, sorority.
Church
Right
is
there.
sorority.
Yeah, a sorority is something. Yes. If you go to college in the United States, you can apply to be a part of a sorority as a woman, groups of women that live together on campus and they organize activities.
Sisterhoods, as they say.
Almost, but this is a little bit, there is a hierarchy for this. You have to apply and they have to accept you. So it's a very high social status to be a part of a sorority in a college and live on campus with other women. And sometimes they go through hazing. Do you guys know what hazing is? Are you familiar with hazing? No? Have you heard? Can you tell us what you've heard?
I'm not.
It's an
I'm
initiation ceremony of some sort. Like, for example, it's something crazy. I've seen something similar here in Trondheim a few years ago. I was on the bus minding my own business when I looked out the window. I saw, I don't know, 17 kids running naked in the street, and everybody was applauding and everything. It was part of a hazing initiation ceremony for something. I don't know what it was. If it was school, if it was rus, or what it was.
I think they have it at the university.
They have that.
Sororities.
Mhm.
Maybe not. I don't know if that's high class. Because I haven't been to the university yet. But I have talked about the.
But that's
so they
just
have
for-
this,
Just for women. What is the one for men? Have you heard of the one for men? It's yes, fraternity. Fraternity is the same thing for men, and they have hazing as well. initiation ceremonies, things that you have to do. You have to clean the floor with your toothbrush. I don't know, something like that. Okay, I have another question here. What do you think the social background or social status of this woman is? The woman telling the sweetness.
Now, no,
You can talk about her. You felt the different chronological order going everywhere, right? So you can talk about now what her social status is.
my understanding at the end was that she was in a good place, let's say, not in the worst case, as if with no rights, like poor, alone, and suffering and so on. She could be in a home. I understood that she was in a home for elderly people.
Yes, she was. That's it. So right now you consider her comfortable. She's in a comfortable position. But how about throughout her life when she was raising a baby?
Her parents were working in a house for white people, so probably she was living there. So she got the treatment as the baby of the black servants.
Right.
I don't know. So,
Yes, you're right. But when she was raising Bride, Bride is the girl on the book cover. When she was raising Bride, what was her income? Where did her income come from?
She had studied, I think.
She was nurse. Yeah.
Was she a nurse? She, at some point, when she was raising a baby, she got welfare. What is welfare?
Taking money from the state as a
Government.
government.
Yeah. And she also mentioned that this had a different name before.
Really.
It was called relief. What does she say about that? About the name, and do you remember that?
She preferred to
Relief.
It's all what this was called in the day, what they have as in welfare, the help from the government. Many, many years ago, the name was relief. Relief is that feeling that you feel like that after you're so tired and you finally sit down. Oh, I'm so relieved now. The feeling of relief is that. So maybe she's thinking about that, how that name is not as offensive or makes her think of something good instead of something negative. Welfare, she doesn't like. She doesn't like that at all. I want more words and expressions that you want to ask about.
Throwback?
Throwback.
At the
Yes.
beginning.
A throwback is somebody, okay, I don't know how much biology all of you guys have studied, but in some countries you have to take science up to a certain level. In some countries you study this. If you have two people who are mixed with something, their baby could be something that looks nothing like them. You can have two people who look like me end up with a white child. You can, because a throwback would be the baby would take after our ancestors. Throwback. You would have a tiny bit of a gene from me and from somebody that I was with who was also the same color as me, who also had a tiny bit of white all the way in the back in the past, and then have a baby. So that's a throwback. And then it says, but throwback to what? She's thinking, where does this black come from? But that's what happens when you have people who are, now you can study this and you know that when you have two people who are mixed, they can have, if they have 10 children, they can have 10 children of different colors, different shades. It can happen. Nowadays, it's explained. So there was nothing wrong, and she said she didn't fool around with another man, so she knew it was, but it created some tension in the house. So, any other words or expressions?
What is a porter?
A porter is a doorman.
A doorman.
Yeah, a doorman that I love doormen. They're in extinction right now. I haven't seen doormen anywhere. Everywhere I go, I haven't seen any doormen in years, and they're firing all the doormen everywhere as well. My mom said they fired all the doormen in her apartment building. So it's a worldwide phenomenon. They're disappearing.
Fashion.
Yeah.
Say,
Now that you have them in hotels and that's it.
Yeah. Cussing man.
What's a cussing man? Cuss, to say bad words, to cuss, to use foul language. So a cussing man would be somebody that says a lot of foul things, that uses a lot of cuss words. But he was so surprised when he saw the baby that he cussed.
What does it mean to primp?
To primp.
Yeah?
To primp, to adjust details in your hair, and could be also your makeup. It's a very girly thing to primp. Very girly. Primp. And you think of, it's to fix yourself somewhat. To fix yourself. And this is like your appearance, to fix yourself and to do that. What did you?
So it's not. So it's just adjusting slightly, having a, maybe having a look in the mirror and making
Primping.
sure.
It could be a little bit of primping or lots of it, but it's
Okay.
It's fixing yourself. And there is another expression for the same thing in there, to doll yourself up. To doll yourself up. It's very girly as well. Not man, you can say the guy dolled himself up. Unless he's a transvestite, I don't think it makes any sense to use it for a man, but for women, she dolled herself up, she primped herself. To doll yourself up. And think of the word doll as in how the doll looks so pretty, to make yourself pretty, to doll yourself up. This expression is here somewhere. It isn't here somewhere. I promise you it is. What other words and expressions?
He had a fit if you were a minute late with the money.
Okay, which part of that do you want me to explain?
Had a fit.
Fit. What's a fit? A fit.
Suitable. Yeah, desire something. Yeah, that's my perception.
A fit is a seizure.
Okay.
An epileptic seizure, an epileptic fit. This is one example. There are different types of fits. Or it could be a hissy fit, which is a little girl, I don't want to go to school. That's a hissy fit. It's a fit. There are different types. So to have a fit in this case, you probably would get really angry. So they're using the word in a way that he was maybe violently angry. Maybe he was angry if they were late with the rent.
What about peacock?
Have you ever seen that bird, that beautiful bird that has such beautiful feathers, and they open up in the back? Yeah. What's a peacock in Norwegian? Yeah. So it's one of the most beautiful birds, and it's a male that dolls himself up, not the women in that situation there.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's the males that have the big feathers, everything.
Okay. I really have a limited knowledge of
Giddy.
Giddy
Is
is when you're filled with glee, you're giddy, you're happy. Yeah. Cheer up, you can say giddy up, giddy up. Yeah.
Sassy. Okay.
Sassy.
I've heard it before.
Yeah.
I remember.
Sassy. This word can mean different things. There is even a verb. Sass up. Very informal, not recommended for academic or business situations, but I'll teach you anyway. Sassy. Because that girl was so sassy. She had a bit of an attitude. She was sassy. She was like, you say, for example, you look so pretty today. Oh, just today you think I look pretty? Don't you think I look pretty all the time? Kind of sassy, just kind of sassy. Now to sass up, it could be to have an attitude negatively to people, to say things like, you're not the owner here. I'm gonna sit here if I want to sass up people, to be. So it's not a nice thing. Sass up, to be sassy. But some people like that and consider that a good thing. Some people think that it's charming and sexy in a woman to be sassy. I don't know. It's a matter of taste. But it is a quality for some people.
When she said that she braided the hair, what is that?
Yeah, when I came in today, I had braids, and then I unbraided my hair to have braids. I'm a very fast braider. I can do it with my eyes closed. What else is there that you guys want to know about?
Things have changed a bit from when I was young. I understand it's a little more.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
A might, yeah.
A might. This one? A might. A little bit. A tad. A little. A tad's a little. You can see, that coffee is a tad strong, is a bit strong.
But her name, the daughter's name is Lulan.
Yeah, Lillian. Mm-hmm. But she changed her name to Bride.
Ah, that I didn't get.
She changed her name to Bride. And if you have a chance to read the book, you will understand a lot about her.
It's a kind of a weird name for me. The Bride.
Somebody would call themselves Bride. It is. Every name has a symbolic value behind it in these novels. So the mother calling herself Sweetness is almost a paradox when you look at it. Yeah, because she's not sweet. But I think she wants to be perceived as a good mother. She wants the daughter to love her, but she thinks she's right in what she's doing. So she asked the daughter to call her sweetness, but why? Do you remember why?
She didn't want to hear her say mama
Yeah,
with her. She used it.
with her thick lips.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is so strange for me because people go get different injections to get, and have you seen the thing with the cup that they do? They put the cup in their hand, in their mouths, and they blow in it and then pull it out. And then if you go to the internet and you look for Kylie Jenner challenge, it's free. You have small lips to have bigger lips. It's what people are doing now with cups. Crazy things. So people want thick lips, but then if a black person has them, it's a bad thing. So it's very strange. What else is there that you want to ask? Let's take a look at words, expressions, even something that is about the book itself, without asking me what happened, like to the plot, because I want you to read it.
The mother, yes, she has a problem, but it's not a word. Because I see now the main bride again, and the mother says, I never paid that any attention. I think it also shows from the last paragraph that she doesn't consider what she did was wrong. She finds excuses anyway for her attitude. So even though she knows that her daughter doesn't approve her in a way, but still she doesn't pay attention to the fact that that the daughter changed
her name
because she doesn't
want to acknowledge her heritage because of that mother. But there's so much more to this story, so much more. So many different characters. Because tonight, these excerpts that we read, you got to know Sweetness and you heard about Bride. But Bride is the superstar of this novel. She is the one, she's the main character. She and her somebody, I'm not going to say what he is. She has somebody. And then in here, does the mother know what the man is to her in the very end? Yeah.
And then?
How is it? The mother doesn't know. The mother says, you and your nameless boyfriend, husband, pickup, whoever. What is a pickup?
Someone that you pick up from somewhere. It doesn't sound positive at least.
It doesn't sound fun. A pickup would be like a one-night stand. You go to a bar, oh, you're cute, let's go. And then that's you pick that person up, and then that's it. Pick up. And then there are a few words here. Cooing and booties and diapers. Do you know what those booties are in here? The word booties? Think of a tiny baby right now. A tiny baby. And then they can't wear shoes, right? And they don't wear socks. Well, they do, but they have something that kind of looks like a shoe, but it isn't a shoe. Made out of, you can knit them or you can crochet. Those are booties for kids. Another thing you should pay attention to with this word is that it has multiple meanings. So when you go somewhere and they don't want you to get mud on the floor, they have those blue plastic things. Those are called booties as well. You think of the sounds that the baby makes, and you talk to the baby in the baby voice, all of that, kichi kichi, like that. And the word diapers, Maybe you guys went to school where you learned British English, so you probably learned nappies instead of diapers. What the babies wear. So nappies is the same as diapers, but nappies is British English. It's British English, and diapers is American. So if you want to put something on your baby, you have to ask for nappies. If you go to Great Britain, if you go to New Zealand and Australia, they also use nappies instead of diapers, the word nappies. In the United States, nappy, the word nappy means ugly, dirty hair. So it's something that you should know. It's a cultural thing. But it has nothing to do with diapers in America. So if people who are of British descent and they use the word nappies and they go to the store and you want that, because they don't know what nappies are. Nappies are diapers for babies. Any other words that you could think of asking about, or expressions or something about the novel itself?
In the letter that Sweetness received from her daughter, the daughter addresses her as S.
Not Sweetness, but just S.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she doesn't want to say it because you're not sweet. I'm not going to call you Sweetness, so just S. That symbolizes so much.
I have the impression that it's among, an informal way of,
Maybe a term of endearment.
I mean, like you could say to a friend or a colleague or somebody.
Yes,
like,
you could.
Hey, what's up, G? Or
yeah, absolutely. You could. In this case, however, because of the animosity and knowing the history of what's said here, it probably is not that, but it's probably something she just doesn't want to say it. But we have to ask Toni Morrison what she meant. This is because this is the kind of thing that would be great to be able to ask her. She doesn't take emails or Facebook, any of that. She only responds to letters, handwritten letters, Toni Morrison. So she has a group of people that do her web pages. Alice Walker, on the other hand, she does her own website. She's more accessible that way. So, because nowadays Toni Morrison is, she is wheelchair bound. She doesn't have any problems like paraplegic or anything like that. But because she's older and she gained a lot of weight and she has a lot of difficulty moving around. So they're not absolutely sure she will be in Holland at any time, but she's supposed to come to Europe. And I would so love to be in a lecture and see her. I'd probably be like wanting to ask questions. I spent the past 2 years, I would say, on a personal project where I read all her books and I read all about her. And I've been writing my own perspective on these. I could probably write a book myself on my perspective and things that where I can see myself in the characters and where I absolutely can't see myself. And one of these books, this one, it has a male perspective. It's called Home. It's about a veteran with PTSD. What is PTSD?
Stress disorder?
Absolutely, yeah, that's what it is. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Wow.
And it's something that people who go to war, they have nightmares and they have. And this man is he goes in search of something, and it's a very different book compared to the others, because all the others have a lot of female perspective, and in here you have a male perspective. Did I talk about all the books?
Not that one, I think.
Paradise. Yeah, Paradise is about a group of women who live in a convent, but they're not nuns. They're there for a reason. And you have to read it to read it. Find out what it is. Any more questions? Anything you would like to know before you leave here tonight?
I found that there is a new course here going to be run about the English literature. So you will be the teacher, I guess.
Yes, if we have enough people, if we have at least 4 people interested in the literature course, I would be more than thrilled to teach it. And not only African American literature, but literature written in English, because that's my specialty. So I'd be happy to teach it.
So, but this new course will be arranged on which day? Normally?
Are we starting a group somewhere or?
Yes, we are planning in January.
In January.
Mm-hmm.
How about the duration of the course?
That would be,
So I think you have a plan, right?
Yes, and we are planning, and I will send you an email.
Okay, sounds good.
yeah. So there is a variety of different authors, and I taught a course about 10 years ago at AEF, where it was they brought in the short stories they wanted to learn. It's a lot of work for the teacher if you don't know the short stories, and then I had to read them and prepare different exercises for them. So they were senior citizens. It was fun because I like to read, but even if it was a story that I didn't like, I could still find ways to find something that you can take with you from there. So you can use it to learn language, to improve language, and you can just use it to learn more literature and to learn more about the novel itself.
What kind of exercise? I'm so interested.
What kind of?
What kind of exercise?
What kind of exercise? It could be
assigned.
okay. It could be questions for debate. That's one thing that we can do.
Yes.
Or we can be vocabulary, which people love because then you learn new words, and then it could be grammar exercises based on what's there, or finding mistakes like what we did with African American vernacular. You look at it and then you can change it into formal, or you can do a variety of different things, but mostly vocabulary, grammar, and expressions. And we can do listening with audiobooks as well. Use excerpts with audiobooks. There's different things.
Regarding this new course, I think maybe the focus will be on the contemporary literature, right? Not like the classical one.
It depends on what the students want. That's what we're about here. Yeah.
All right.
So
I understand.
yeah, so you could even bring in what kind of things you're interested in, and then figure out what the other people in the group are interested in, and we'll build something around that.
I'm a bit confused with your character.
Sweetness.
Yes, sweetness. Because I cannot decide if she, in her way, loves the child or not. Because she is old now at the end.
Yes.
She's bored. She's alone. So she can think of her mistakes in a way. I'm not quite sure if she says that, okay, I reckon I have done mistakes, but I have to. So I sympathize in a way with her because
it feels like
she feels what she feels for the child because of her own, the things that she has experienced, I imagine, in her past. And she understands that the life of the child will be difficult, or she sees that the life of the child, because of the color, she will have problems, it will not be a good life. And of course, it will cause her problems, and she has been through a lot.
Yes,
let's say,
absolutely.
until then.
So you have mixed feelings.
Exactly. I think she's a complicated case.
Yeah, and the characters in all her books, they have so many layers. There's no good and bad.
No.
Because that's how we are. Nobody is 100% evil or 100% great. You know, so the characters have layers and layers of complication that you can't really decide. It's very difficult to pick a character and say, oh, this is the good guy in the story. Because everybody has the potential to be the good guy or the bad guy in this.
The thing that I say that I agree that I cannot say she's good or bad for my case. The thing that makes me sad in a way though is that when she ends up, when she finishes her dialogue, let's say, her monologue in a way, I feel that she's okay, now it's your turn, you have a happy life till now, but now you will see.
And now you see what I felt.
I felt,
Yeah,
how
exactly.
difficult it will be. In a way, of course, when it can be that she's saying this, that now you may understand me, or that she feels happy.
That she will have
to go through this, you know, like a bit of, I will have my small revenge because you send me money, but you don't come and visit.
Right.
Now you will see.
Like vindication.
Yeah, I know, in a way.
Maybe.
I don't know.
You'd have to read the book to understand. But that's a project we can have for the future where you can take classes where you can study an entire book and dissect it completely, which is courses that people take at the university. You can teach that type of course as well. We'll see where it takes us. But there's so many other characters that you didn't get to hear about, but it was mostly about Sweetness and then Bride. But Bride doesn't have a voice, but then if you read the book, then you'll see. You'll hear her voice and understand how she is. But this is a very good cover for it. This is the cover for if you buy the book here in Europe, but in America it's not like this. I think this cover was perfect because it shows, this is when you picture Bride, this is how you picture her, especially when she describes her. So
what's the cover in the US?
In the US, it's a black cover with just letters in it. It doesn't have anything that gives you an idea of what the character looks like. But that's on purpose. It's on purpose. Toni Morrison said in an interview a few years ago that she purposely doesn't describe every character physically. She gives you some characteristics and she wants you to read and she wants you to have an idea of what that character looks like. Or when you watch the movie, for example, Beloved, the movie, when you watch that, maybe you would have pictured the characters differently if you had read the book first without being exposed to the novel. I mean, to the movie. So she wants you to think of it. So maybe she didn't approve of that cover, and this is the one that was published in Europe. Because she said that, the character, she wants you to picture the characters.
Did she write any plays?
Second?
Did Toni Morrison write any plays?
Plays, no, but she did write children's books with her son. They co-write children's books, and she writes academic books as well, teaching literature, like different techniques in writing. She taught writing in I think it was Harvard. I'm not 100% sure, but can you imagine taking classes from a writer, learning how to write? That would be such a trait. I keep thinking of people who were her students before she was famous, and I was just like, wow, I took classes with Toni Morrison. Well, I am very happy that you all came tonight, and I'm very happy that I got to share Toni Morrison with you guys, and that now this will be a familiar name. And if somebody says, "Oh, do you know what Toni Morrison is?" then your answer will be different after tonight. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will speak with Polyana and we'll send you a program.
Okay.
So some inspiration and.